Before we dive in, if you enjoy these first-person zombie apocalypse horror stories, hit like and subscribe to never miss a drop of dread. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from tonight? I read everyone, and it's wild seeing how far these tales travel. Now let's get into it. The smell of smoke and rot hung in the air like a noose. I moved through the ruins of what used to be a town. My boots crunched over shattered glass and broken dreams. Ash drifted down from the sky, soft as snow. It clung to my jacket, my hair, my skin. Somewhere out there the bone rats were laughing, celebrating another hunt. Another child ripped from the living world. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Knuckles white, blood rising like an old, familiar tide. I should have been faster. I should have seen them coming. Was smart. She knew how to stay quiet, how to hide. But they did not care. They did not give her a chance. The last thing I heard was her scream. It sliced through the empty streets like a knife. Then the gunshot, then nothing. The world did not end in fire and ash. It ended in silence, a cold, endless silence. Now the only thing that keeps me breathing is the promise I made when I found the trail of blood leading away from her empty shoes. Hunt them, every last one. Make them bleed, make them scream. When they beg for mercy, I will remind them what mercy looks like in a dead world. Because mercy died the same night Emily did, and I buried it right alongside her. It started slow, not like the movies. No screaming headlines, no dramatic final broadcasts, just whispers, stories, people vanishing from towns out in the sticks, whole neighborhoods empty by the time help showed up, if help even bothered to come at all. By the time the news caught on, it was too late. The virus was already in the cities, planes grounded, borders slammed shut. Martial law rolled out like a bad joke. I was still active duty then. Green Beret, 5th Special Forces Group. They sent us into hot zones, clean and contain. That was the mission. We did what we could, for a while, until we realized we were not fighting a sickness. We were fighting hunger. A new kind of predator had been born, one that did not think, did not feel fear, did not stop. We lost whole platoons overnight. Some broke ranks, went dark, started carving out their own kingdoms in the ruins. It was not the dead we feared most. It was the living. After a while, command stopped giving orders. The radios went silent. The flags came down. The world folded in on itself. I tried to get home. Took me 3 weeks in a stolen convoy truck to get back to Tennessee. Found the old farmhouse still standing, somehow untouched. Inside, waiting for me, was Emily. 8 years old. Biggest damn smile you ever saw. She ran into my arms, tight enough to crack ribs. She had survived. Her and a few others, neighbors, friends, all banded together. I buried my uniform that night. Swore I was done fighting other people's wars. This time it would be different. This time it was about family. We lived quiet for a while. Moved camp twice when the hordes got too close. Planted a garden, scavenged what we could. Built walls out of rusted cars and scrap metal. It was not perfect, but it was ours. Emily grew strong, fierce. I taught her everything I knew. How to spot a trap, how to move without making a sound, how to fight when running was not an option. She was a natural. I used to joke that she was the real soldier. I was just her sidekick. Then came the bone rats. Scavengers, not infected, worse. Men and women who hunted the living. Took what they wanted. Left nothing behind but broken bodies and burned shelters. I spotted them one night while out on patrol. 5 of them, crawling through the darkness like cockroaches. Tattered armor, weapons cobbled together from old military stockpiles. I warned the others, told them to pack light, get ready to move. We were almost out, just a few more miles to the next safe house. That was when they struck. Hit us hard and fast, Molotovs through the windows, gunfire ripping the night apart. I fought, God help me, I fought like a man possessed. Took down 3 of them before a bullet caught me in the leg. I went down hard, watched from the dirt as they dragged Emily away, her small fists beating against them, her voice calling for me. I tried to crawl after them, left a trail of blood in the mud, but they were too fast. By the time I could stand again, they were gone, so was she. I searched for days, tracked them through ruined towns and broken highways, found scraps of her clothing, a ribbon she used to wear. Then I found the clearing, the signs of a struggle, the blood. Too much blood. I buried what was left beneath an old oak tree, marked the grave with her favorite stone, the one she used to call her lucky rock. After that, there was nothing left but the hunt. I became a ghost, a shadow in the ruins, moved from settlement to settlement, trading bullets and pain for information. The bone rats had names, faces, histories. I memorized every one, every detail. The leader, a woman with scars down her cheek, called herself Mother Red. Her lieutenants, a giant with a hammer made from a truck axle, a weary little bastard who liked to use knives, a former soldier who still wore his old dog tags like a joke. Each of them would pay. Each of them would feel the cold hands of justice around their throat. And when I was done, when the last of their screams faded into the ash, maybe then I could rest. Maybe then Emily could too. The trail led me north, through towns swallowed by ivy and rot, through forests where the trees grew too thick and the dead wandered like lost children. I moved at night, slept during the day when I could find shelter, an overturned truck, an abandoned barn, anything with 4 walls and a door I could barricade. The days blurred into each other, the same endless gray sky, the same smell of damp earth and decay. But I kept moving, kept following the signs. The bone rats were sloppy. They left tracks like amateurs, crushed grass, spent shell casings, bones gnawed clean and left in little piles. They thought they were predators, but real predators know how to cover their tracks. Real predators know how to wait. I found their latest camp just after sunset, a crumbling diner off an old highway, window smashed out, an old neon sign buzzing like a dying insect. I watched from the tree line, patient, breathing slow. There were 6 of them, not counting the ones inside. Laughing, drinking, passing around a bottle of something that smelled like paint thinner. One of them wore a leather vest stitched together with scraps of old flags. A rat skull dangled from his neck on a chain. That was my target, Jeb Crowley, one of Mother Red's lieutenants. A sadist, a murderer. The others were just collateral. I waited until they passed out, one by one, slumping against the rusted cars, snoring loud enough to wake the dead. Then I moved, quiet as a breath. I slipped through the weeds, across the cracked asphalt, right up to the edge of the light. I took out the first sentry with a knife, quick, clean. The second barely had time to grunt before the blade found his throat. I was a shadow among shadows, until Jeb staggered out of the diner, half drunk, half awake. He froze when he saw the bodies. I stepped into the light, my knife dripping red onto the concrete. He reached for his pistol, too slow. I closed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed his wrist, twisted until I heard the bones snap. He screamed, loud and ugly. I slammed him against the wall, the neon sign flickering wild above us. He swung at me with his free hand, sloppy, desperate. I ducked under it, drove my knee into his gut, felt the air whoosh out of him. He dropped to the ground, gasping like a fish. I knelt beside him, pressed the blade against his throat. "Where is she?" I asked. His eyes widened, recognition flickering there. He knew who I was. Good. He spat blood at my boots. Tried to laugh. It came out as a wet gurgle. "You are too late," he said. "They fed her to the pit months ago." I pressed the knife harder, a thin line of blood beating along his skin. "Mother Red," I said. "Where is she?" He chuckled, a broken sound. "North," he said. "Past the river, big camp. You will not make it." I leaned in closer, close enough to smell the rot on his breath. "I am not here to make it," I said. Then I dragged the knife across his throat. He jerked once, twice, then went still. The others were waking now, groaning, staggering to their feet. I slipped away before they could find me, melted back into the woods, let the night swallow me whole. My heart hammered in my chest, not from fear, from purpose. I had a direction now, a name, a target. Mother Red. I whispered the name to myself, rolled it over my tongue like a prayer made of broken glass. North, past the river. I tightened the straps on my pack, checked the magazines in my rifle, counted the bullets. Not enough, never enough. But it would have to do. The river was 2 days away, maybe 3 if the dead were thick along the old roads. I would move fast, hit hard. No more mercy, no more hesitation. The bone rats thought they had broken me. They thought they had won. But grief is not a chain, it is a blade, sharp and hungry. And I was done grieving. I was ready to cut. The river was worse than I remembered. The bridge had collapsed years ago. Nothing left but rusted beams jutting out of the water like broken ribs. Crossing meant wading through waist-deep sludge, fighting the current, praying nothing grabbed my legs from below. I made it across at dawn, clothes soaked, weapons caked in mud. I found an old ranger station on the far bank, boarded up, forgotten. Inside I stripped down, cleaned what I could, patched up the worst of my gear. While the sun rose, I pored over the old maps on the wall, trying to guess where a group like the bone rats would dig in. Settlements, water sources, defensible positions. It all pointed to the quarry, a massive scar in the earth a few miles north. Back before the world ended, it had been a limestone mine. Afterward, it became something else. Locals called it the pit, say it was cursed, said no one who went there ever came back. Sounded like the perfect place for Mother Red to set up shop. I moved fast, kept off the main roads, avoided the dead where I could. Took me a day to reach the outer perimeter. The bone rats had fortified it, scrap walls, makeshift watchtowers, floodlights powered by gutted generators, and cages. Rows and rows of cages lining the edge of the quarry. I watched through the scope of my rifle, every muscle in my body tensed. There were people inside those cages, starving, broken, waiting for something. I thought I understood then, thought they were keeping prisoners. Maybe for labor, maybe worse. I was wrong. Night fell, and the truth came crawling out of the darkness. The bone rats gathered at the edge of the quarry, cheering, laughing. Mother Red stood above them all, tall and lean, her red hair wild around her like a bloody halo. She raised one arm. The crowd fell silent. 2 of her men dragged a prisoner from the cages, a boy, no older than Emily had been. They threw him into the pit. At first, nothing happened, just the sound of his screams echoing up the stone walls. Then the ground shifted, and they came. The pit was not empty. It was filled with infected, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, trapped down there like rats in a barrel. And the bone rats fed them the living, turned it into a sport, a spectacle. The infected tore into the boy before he could even stand. The crowd roared with laughter. Some threw coins, others placed bets. I could not move, could barely breathe. Mother Red smiled, a slow, sick smile. And then she looked right at me. Somehow, across the distance, she knew. She raised her hand again, snapped her fingers. 2 more prisoners were dragged out, this time a man and a woman, both beaten bloody. The man fought, kicked and screamed, begged. They threw him in anyway. The woman stumbled back, crying out. Mother Red approached her, said something I could not hear. Then she pulled a knife from her belt, slashed the woman across the face, slow and deliberate. The woman fell to her knees. Mother Red laughed, pushed her into the pit. The infected surged forward like a wave. I turned away. I had seen war, seen what people were capable of. But this was something else. This was evil for the sake of evil. I slid back into the trees, mind racing. This was not just about survival for them, not about stealing supplies or claiming territory. The bone rats worshipped the apocalypse. They had built a kingdom on suffering. And somewhere in that quarry, buried in the dust and bones, was the truth about Emily. I knew it now. She had not just been taken. She had been offered, fed to the pit like so many others. My hands shook with rage. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to think. Charging in blind would get me killed, and it would not avenge her. No, I needed a plan. Needed to tear this place down brick by brick. Make Mother Red watch as everything she had built crumbled into dust. It would not be enough. Nothing could ever be enough. But it was a start. I backed away from the camp, melting into the shadows. Tomorrow night I would come back, and hell was coming with me. I spent the next day gathering what I could. Old hunting cabins, abandoned gas stations, places the bone rats had not stripped bare. I found a stash of propane tanks under one collapsed roof, cracked open a toolbox and rigged some basic detonators, primitive, ugly, but effective. If I was going to bring down the pit, I needed more than bullets. I needed chaos. By sunset I had everything ready, loaded into a battered wheelbarrow I found half buried in mud. The plan was simple. Light the fires, blow the cages, force the infected up and out. Let the bone rats choke on their own nightmare. And in the confusion, find Mother Red. Kill her. End it. I moved under cover of darkness, a ghost in the trees, the floodlights from the camp carving long beams through the night. The guards were lazy, overconfident. They had ruled this stretch of wasteland for too long. I slipped past the outer defenses without a sound. Planted the propane tanks at key points along the walls, near the generators, near the cages. Every second ticked louder in my head. Once I lit the first fuse, it was all or nothing. No backup, no way out. I crouched behind a wrecked bus on the edge of the quarry. Took a slow breath. Felt the familiar calm settle over me. Fear turned into focus, doubt into precision. I struck the first fuse, watched the spark catch, then bolted for the next one. By the time I hit the third charge, the first explosion rocked the night. Flames leapt skyward, smoke billowing thick and black. Shouts filled the air, bone rats scrambling, guns drawn, eyes wild. The second explosion took out the eastern wall, metal screaming as it tore apart. The infected smelled blood. I saw them at the bottom of the pit, snarling, clawing at the walls. The heat and smoke drove them mad. One by one they began to climb, scrabbling over each other, leaping for the broken edges. And then they were free. The bone rats never stood a chance. The infected poured into the camp like a flood, tearing into anything that moved. Screams ripped through the night. Gunfire erupted in every direction. I moved through the chaos, silent, deadly. Picked off bone rats one by one, a knife to the spine, a bullet through the eye. No wasted motion, no mercy. They had built this hell, now they would die in it. The prisoners in the cages screamed for help. I shot the locks, kicked open the doors. Some ran, some just collapsed, too broken to move. I left them to their fate. My mission was clear. Find Mother Red. End this. I fought my way toward the main building, an old mining office reinforced with scrap and concrete. 2 guards at the door. I dropped them before they could raise their weapons. 1 shot each, clean, final. Inside, the halls were choked with smoke. Figures stumbled through the haze, bone rats, prisoners infected. It did not matter. Anything that got between me and my target went down. The screams were deafening, the walls slick with blood. It was a slaughterhouse. I kicked open the door to the main office. Mother Red was waiting. She stood behind a makeshift throne of welded steel and bones, a shotgun cradled in her arms. Her eyes locked on mine. No fear. Only contempt. You made it, she said, voice rough like sandpaper. I said nothing. Raise my rifle. She moved first. The blast took me in the side, threw me against the wall. Armor plates absorbed most of it, but pain flared bright along my ribs. I rolled, fired twice. 1 shot grazed her shoulder. The other blew apart the throne behind her. Mother Red cursed, dropped the shotgun, drew a machete from her belt. She came at me, fast, wild. But rage makes you sloppy. I sidestepped her first swing, caught her wrist, twisted until she screamed. The machete clattered to the floor. I drove my elbow into her jaw, felt something crack. She staggered back, spitting blood. You think this will bring her back, she hissed. I closed the distance, grabbed her by the throat, slammed her against the wall. No, I said, and I drove my knife into her gut. Deep. She gasped, eyes wide. Blood poured from her mouth. I twisted the blade. She was 10, I said. Mother Red sagged, her life pouring out of her in great heaving shudders. I let her fall. Watched the light fade from her eyes. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. The building shook, parts of the ceiling caving in. The fires were everywhere now, the infected overrunning everything. Time to go. I staggered back into the smoke. The camp was a burning ruin. Bone rats torn apart in the mud, the infected feasting without end. I pushed through the chaos, through the flames. Found a gap in the wall, a way out. Kept moving. Kept breathing. Behind me, the pit collapsed in on itself. The walls crumbled, the earth swallowing everything whole. Mother Red, the bone rats, the kingdom of death they had built. All of it gone. But not her. Not Emily. Nothing could bring her back. I stumbled into the woods, collapsed against a tree. The fire painted the sky in shades of hell. And I sat there, listening to it burn. Not smiling, not crying. Just breathing. One breath at a time. One moment at a time. Until there was nothing left but the sound of the wind. I should have kept moving, should have run. But something kept me rooted there, at the edge of the burning quarry, watching it all come apart. Maybe I wanted to die with it, maybe part of me already had. The infected did not care about closure, they cared about blood, and the fires had stirred them into a frenzy. They poured out of the wreckage, a black tide against the trees, screeching, howling. And they saw me. The first one broke through the tree line. A man, or what used to be a man, half his face torn away, eyes wide with hunger. I put a bullet through his skull, clean, efficient. But for every one I dropped, 3 more took his place. I had half a magazine left, a combat knife, and a handful of stolen grenades strapped to my belt. Not much, but enough. I moved, fast, darting between the trees, leading them away from the quarry. If I stayed still, they would swamp me. If I kept moving, maybe I could pick them off. Maybe I could thin the herd. Maybe. The woods became a blur of shadows and gunfire. I fired, reloaded, fired again. A woman lunged at me, her jaw hanging loose by tendons. I sidestepped her, drove my knife up under her chin, ripped it free, kept moving. The infected were faster now, hungrier. Every shot was a heartbeat, every breath a prayer. I tossed a grenade behind me, felt the shockwave push me forward. Bodies tore apart in a blossom of smoke and blood. Still they came. By the time I reached the old ranger station, I was bleeding from a dozen shallow cuts. My arms heavy, my legs trembling. No more bullets, just the knife, and a broken piece of rebar I grabbed off the ground. The station was barely standing, walls blackened by smoke, roof half collapsed. But it would have to do. I kicked open the door, barricaded it with whatever I could find. Then I turned to face the windows. Shadows moved outside, circling. They knew I was trapped. They could afford to wait. I took a deep breath, rolled my shoulders. No more running. Not tonight. The first infected crashed through the window, a blur of teeth and claws. I met him head on, drove the rebar through his chest, kicked him off the end of it. Another followed, and another. I fought like a man already dead, no fear, no hesitation. Blood coated the floor, my own and theirs. My arms screamed with every swing, my vision blurred. But I did not stop. Could not. For Emily, for every life snuffed out in that pit. I roared as I fought, a raw sound, animal, broken. They dragged me down more than once, clawed at my armor, bit at my arms. Each time I forced them off, each time I rose again. Until the floor was littered with bodies. Until the night outside grew still. Until the only sound was my own ragged breathing. I leaned against the wall, blood dripping from my fingertips. The infected were gone, for now. But I knew better than to think it was over. Not really. The world did not get saved because one man burned down a camp. The dead would keep coming. The strong would keep preying on the weak. I had won a battle, not the war. And part of me wondered if there was even a war worth fighting anymore. I slid down the wall, sat there in the wreckage. The fire at the quarry still lit up the sky, ash falling like snow. I closed my eyes, saw her face, Emily laughing in the sun, holding my hand with her small, sticky fingers. I could almost hear her voice, almost feel her warmth. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself cry. Not loud, not racking sobs, just quiet tears falling into the dirt. I had lost her, lost everything that mattered, but I was still breathing, still fighting, and maybe that was enough. Maybe not. I stayed there until the first gray light of dawn pushed through the smoke. The infected were gone, the woods eerily silent. I stood, bones aching, muscles screaming. Picked up what weapons I could salvage. Checked the horizon. Another day in hell. Another day to endure. I set off into the morning, each step heavy, each breath a labor. But I kept going, because that is what the dead could not do. And I was not dead, not yet. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of smoke and ash. I did not look back. Some places are meant to burn. Some memories are meant to stay buried. The road ahead was long, broken, lonely. But it was still a road. And for now, that was enough. One foot in front of the other, one breath after another, chasing whatever future waited beyond the smoke, or whatever death found me first. Either way, I would meet it standing, not crawling, not begging, standing, because that is what she would have wanted, and it was the only thing I had left to give. The sun rose slow and pale over the blackened woods. The fires had burned themselves out in the night. Nothing left but smoldering ruins and charred skeletons of trees. The quarry was a black scar on the earth. No signs of life, no movement, only ash drifting through the air. I walked. Every step a reminder of the cost, every ache and bruise another name added to the ledger. The infected had scattered, or maybe they had burned with the rest of it. Either way, I saw no more of them. The bone rats were gone, Mother Red was gone. The pit was gone. And Emily was still gone too. The world felt emptier without them, even the monsters. I reached a crumbling overpass by midday, an old highway that led nowhere anymore. Cars rusted into the concrete like bones. Billboards faded and torn by years of wind and rain. I climbed up the embankment, stood on the cracked asphalt. In every direction the wasteland stretched out, broken cities, empty fields, forests that whispered with things best left unseen. I looked back once, at the smoke rising from the trees. A grave marker for a place that never deserved a second thought, a tombstone for the worst parts of us. I adjusted the straps on my pack, checked the battered rifle slung across my back. Still some miles left in me, still some fire. As long as I could put one foot in front of the other, there was a fight left to be had. Somewhere, somehow. Not for revenge, not anymore. For survival. For memory. For her. I turned my face into the wind, smelled rain coming. The storms were never far behind these days. But neither was I. I started walking again, slow, steady. No destination, no promises. Only forward. Always forward. Somewhere out there the world was still bleeding. Somewhere out there people were still hiding, still hoping, still fighting. Maybe they were already dead. Maybe they just did not know it yet. I did not know what waited for me past the next ridge. Did not know if it would be worse than what I left behind. Did not care. There was no home to go back to, no safe place waiting, no promises of rescue. Only the road, only the fight. And if death wanted me, it would have to catch me first. I walked into the storm, the first drops of rain cold against my skin, the thunder rumbling low and angry across the horizon. I kept walking, past the ruins, past the graves, past the ghosts. Because in the end, there is only one thing that matters. You keep moving, or you die. And I was not ready to die. Not yet.